We're going to be talking about Barclodiad y Gawres today, which is one particular chambered tomb on Anglesey. So, good afternoon and welcome to this light talk about the Neolithic tomb Barclodiad y Gawres. Firstly, a little about me. I'm Adele Thackray. I'm the Lifelong Learning Manager for North Wales for Cadw, which is the Welsh Government's Historic Environment Service. I started working for Cadw in 2010 as an archaeologist, looking after the management of scheduled ancient monuments in the landscape of Wales. I studied at Bangor University. I have 5 children and 10 grandchildren, and I have no cats. Now, if you just bear with me a moment, I'll make sure that this works. And there are some of the children, just as proof, and there's no cats in that picture. We at Cadw, we have 130 archaeological sites in our care or guardianship and over 4,000 scheduled monuments across Wales. We also have World Heritage Sites here in Wales, including the castles of Edward I and the industrial landscape of Blaenavon, and more recently, the newly designated slate landscape of Gwynedd. The ancient monuments under our guardianship range from abbeys to chambered tombs. As you can see there, we've got beautiful abbey, we've got chambered tomb or a dolmen. From castles to Roman forts, that's Conway Castle I have there. And then sacred wells to industrial landscapes. As you can see, there's a well there that's at Penmon Priory, that's on Anglesey. And we have the industrial landscape of Blaenavon there. In fact, the whole of Wales is rich with ancient landscapes telling vibrant and diverse stories of the past. The particular monuments and surrounding landscape we're going to talk about today, or I'm going to talk about, is the wonderful and rather special Neolithic chambered tomb or burial place called Barclodiad y Gawres. Barclodiad y Gawres sits on the Isle of Anglesey, which is a rather famous island, I'd like to think, also known as Ynys Môn. It's the Mother Isle. It's a wonderful island off the coast, off the mainland of North Wales. And as you can see there, Barclodiad y Gawres sits there on the coastline near Rosnaiga in a place called Cable Bay. Right. There are lots of beautiful and striking places to see and visit on this island off the mainland of North Wales. There's architecture. We've got Menai Bridge, picture of Menai Bridge there. There's Paris Mountains, unique landscape where the copper mines are. And that place looks like, if you go there, it looks like you're on the moon or on Mars or somewhere. We've got beautiful beaches and we've got thousands of years of visible history. As you can see there, we've got Dinlligwy Romano-British settlement. This is just a light overview of what we've got. If you look at Cable Bay there, that is actually a picture of the reconstructed chambered tomb of Barclodiad y Gawres there. You can see the entrance. So as you can see, Anglesey is steeped in visible ancient history, and some of that ancient history is recorded. The Roman historian Tacitus speaks of the Isle of Mona and how the Romans, during the invasion 2,000 years ago, stood at the banks of the straits, looking across to the sacred Isle of the Druids. And this is what he wrote. On the beach stood the adverse array, a serried mass of arms and men, with women flitting between the ranks. In the style of Furies, in robes of deathly black and with dishevelled hair, they brandished their torches, while a circle of druids, lifting their hands to heaven and showering imprecations, struck the troops with such an awe at the extraordinary spectacle that, as though their limbs were paralysed, they exposed their bodies to wounds without an attempt at movement. Then, reassured by their general, and inciting each other never to flinch before a band of females and fanatics, they charged behind the standards, cut down all who met them, and enveloped the enemy in his own flame. So, That's what Tacitus had to say about the Isle of Anglesey. And it's not as fierce as that now, unless you go out there on a Saturday night to Llangefni. Before that time of invasion and blood, thousands of years earlier, there was another time, a time of new ideas about building and farming and settling, although I suspect there was still plenty of blood. A time of new technology and ideas, a time of honouring the ancestors and the ancient gods of this fair land, with new stone structures in the sacred landscapes twixt mountain and sea. As Neolithic people moved from being nomadic hunter-gatherers to gradually becoming the first farmers, they began to clear forested land, firstly for animal enclosures and later to plant crops. They began domesticating goats, pigs, and cattle. It was the new Stone Age, and therefore new tools were needed, such as axes. Living in one place for more extended periods meant less time was spent travelling, and this gave Neolithic people more time to develop ideas, skills, and tools, such as stone axes. Several factories for producing these axe heads, have been found in Wales, the largest being at Cadw in Pembremawr, Conwy. Axe heads from Cadw have been found as far away as Yorkshire and the Midlands, which shows us evidence of trade. Living in one place for more extended periods meant less time was spent travelling, and this gave Neolithic people more time to develop ideas, skills, and tools. And farming ensured a reliable food supply, although people may have lived in different places at different times of year to provide summer and winter grazing for their animals. Neolithic people also started to use clay to make pottery for the first time in Britain. There's a picture of a pot there. Pottery was important, obviously, because it meant people could carry and store food and water. It could also be used for cooking. As skills developed, people started making different kinds of pottery. Right, people started decorating and creating art on the pottery as well, using bird bones and twisted cord. Relatively recent and rare discoveries of Neolithic houses or postals and hearths, because we don't actually see the houses because they're wooden, from the Neolithic period have been discovered on Anglesey, including the largest Neolithic settlement in Wales at Llanfaitli, a site that was in use for at least 1,000 years, which is the best preserved houses and more than one house. The archaeological team unearthed evidence of 3 buildings here and more than 2,000 flint, stone, and pottery artifacts. They also excavated burnt hazelnuts, acorns, and seeds, which allowed them to radiocarbon date the site and reconstruct some of the Neolithic diet. Today, when there's a need to build extensively on Anglesey, archaeologists discovered that many let passed. I was recently, well, a few years ago, involved in an excavation on Anglesey, which uncovered everything from the Mesolithic period. We had a Neolithic homestead near a tomb. We had Bronze Age, Bronze Age kists, Roman stuff, Iron Age houses, medieval burials and homes. So there was just a wealth, because it's so untouched, the landscape there. When anybody builds on there, you just, and it's so rich with history and archaeology that you kind of, you almost fall over it on Anglesey. So if you ever get a chance to go and visit, do. It's a magical island. It's a very special place. It's crammed full of secrets of the past. In fact, it is a place of magic. And that would have been a nice PowerPoint move there, but I have to keep flicking back to it. So, as we move on, about Barclodiad y Gawres. Barclodiad y Gawres translates to the apronful of the giantess. Here's an image for you. And this interesting and colourful name comes from local folklore. The tale tells of a giant who, along with his wife, decided to make the journey to Anglesey. He carried two large stones to use as door frame, and his wife carried smaller boulders wrapped in her apron. On the way to their destination, not sure of the distance they would have to travel, or indeed where they were. Let's see if I can flick this on. Yes, I can. They met a travelling cobbler with a sack full of shoes. The giant asked the cobbler if he knew the distance to Anglesey, and the cobbler, full of mischief, said, "Look at all the shoes I have worn out coming from that place to here." On hearing this, the giant roared and threw down his large stones, and the giantess, his wife, threw her hands up in despair, dropping her apron full of stones. And there we have the monument, made from a giant's door lintels and covered with the contents of a giantess's apron full of small boulders. Folklore aside, Barclodiad y Gawres was known about for many years, mainly as a tumble of stones. But more was discovered during an excavation in the 50s and it was reconstructed. Here's a picture of how the tomb looked in the 50s before the excavation. And this is how it looks today because it was reconstructed. So move that on. Right. Now we're going to I'm going to share my screen for a virtual tour, which is just going to be equally as challenging. So if you just bear with me for a moment. So this is the view. This is Cable Bay. As you can see, that's a really nice little inlet there. And then this is the walkway up along the cliff edge to the chamber tomb of Barclodiad y Gawres, which is there. It's this mound on the hill. Can you see the little hand that I'm moving around?
Yeah, we can see where you're pointing.
Good. Thank you. Right, I'll just show you the aerial shot. So that's Barclodiad y Gawres as an aerial shot, so you can see how close to the edge it actually is. Now, if we look that way, we're looking to the north across a duney landscape and the sea. So we'll just walk around here. Now, the Cable Bay is more accurately called Porth Tricasteth, translating to as a gateway for trade or travel, with an ancient fort or castle nearby. So that was perhaps referencing the tomb in the past. It's got lovely views all the way around. I've waffled about everything about, even though the talks about Barclodiad y Gawres, we're only really just getting to it, aren't we? As you see here, if you can, I don't know whether you can see clearly. Let me just turn this around. There's an area of quarry in there, and it's believed that some of the stone may have come from there. There's another area of quarry in here, stone to build the tomb. Could have come from around this area rather than from the apron of the giant or giantess. Now we've got lovely views across the sea. I'll go here. And if we're looking on a clear day, might be able to see Ireland over there. So Ireland's directly over there to the west. This thing on top of the tomb, the reconstructed tomb, is it's solar panel so that they can be lit inside when you go in because it is quite dark. Oh, that can't be found. That's not very good, is it? So this is the entranceway in. It more or less faces north. It takes in the mountains of Holyhead as well, the Irish Sea, and further across the sea to Ireland itself. And during the excavation, it was discovered that this was a cruciform passage tomb with a passageway into a central chamber with 3 smaller chambers inside. And we're just going to nip in here for a minute. And this would be going up the passageway. You see it's been gated. It was gated because a few years ago there's quite a lot of vandalism take place inside, because there's lots of wonderful rock art within. So anyway, from our guidebook, it does say, I'm going to come out of here for a minute. Stop sharing. So I'm hoping that this is the PowerPoint again.
Yep, you're back to the PowerPoint.
I'm back to the PowerPoint, lovely. Thank you. So this is the monument in plan. So you can see we walked up that passageway here, and we stopped around about here where the gates were. It was excavated in 52 and 53 and recreated as it would have been, as they presumed it would have been. During the excavation, it was revealed that most of it was made up of peat turfs and defined by tight packing stones. And the tomb passage itself is entered from the north. The north passageway in, and the length is 7 meters long and flanked by upright stones. They opened up into three small side chambers inside to the east, west, and south. Each of these would have been covered with a capstone, but only that to the south survives. The plan of which you can see there, that's where the capstone is there. And you can see that it more or less faces north, not completely, but more or less. Traces of bone were recovered from this area and this area. However, this is where the evidence of 2 cremated males were found, with 2 fragments of bone pin. What was interesting is in the central area, there was no evidence of any cremation there. However, there was, if I can move this on, there was a very strange thing happened there, which Daniel and Powell, who excavated the tomb, said, I am left with the impressions that it was made to a recipe as elaborate and as rational as the brew of Macbeth's witches, which indeed it somewhat resembles. And what that was there was a wonderful evidence of a fire that was in the tomb that had been allowed to burn for a long time, and most intriguingly, it was quenched with what seemed like a broth potentially of all these different animals. There was unburnt bones from wrasse, eel, frog, toad, snake, mice, hares. So it almost seemed like somebody had made this stew of all these different creatures and then quenched the fire. And then they'd sealed it. Well, that's the stew. I just got a picture of a stew. There's carrots and mushrooms in there as well. And then they quenched it with limpet shells. They quenched it and then they placed limpet shells and white quartz pebbles on top, almost ritually. But that's not the most impressive thing about this tomb at all. The most impressive thing about this tomb is the artwork. Now let's see if we can go inside now, which means I have to stop sharing again and reshare again. Okay, so this is actually, we're inside the tomb now. And this is the central part of where the broth was made. But the most impressive thing about this tomb is the artwork. There's some lovely pecked rock art on the stones that are very similar to artworks that have been found elsewhere on the Irish Sea Zone. There we can see some spirals. And that's in the east chamber. There's a few cremated remains there, but not whole people. Here we've got evidence of spirals and striations and lozenge shapes, but we've also got a lot of graffiti from the 1800s and 1900s on here. I think you see there it says 1902 on the stone. In this western chamber where the cremated remains were found, there is a spiral on one of these rocks. And here is the most impressive. It's like the Mama stone, this. And the artwork on this is actually really, really intricate and quite beautiful as well. And at one point we went in to do some kind of reconstructed experimental archaeology, and we did take some fire into the tomb. We didn't light anything actually on the ground, but we did have some fat lamps in there, and it really does bring the stone to life. The reflection of the fire, it almost dances across the stones when you're in there. So yep, that's the inside. That's a concrete dome that was put up on the 50s when it seemed like a good idea to reconstruct using concrete domes, which is actually, it's almost like archaeology in itself now, of different ways of doing things. So we'll just meander back out again. And take one more look around at the view. Take in the view, everyone. It's really quite spectacular. In fact, I think we can go to the top and take in the view from there. Now, it is the artwork that makes this tomb so special on Anglesey. I'm going to stop sharing that and go back to this, which you can hopefully all see. Yes. So as you can see, this is the stone exposed before it was covered in the 50s reconstruction. So you can see it's outside, would have been where there's a bit chipped off it. And this is a reconstruction of somebody with fire and how the fire would have danced across the stone. Now, for a bit of fun, I put me in trying to recreate some rock art quite a few years ago now. And yeah, it was quite challenging. It was good fun to do it and quite challenging, time consuming. I think we had to do the design first, and there was quite a few of us had a go at it. So there you can see how we were getting along. This is not the only tomb with rock art on the island. There is a wonderful stone on another part of the island. Now, I went to see this and spoke to the farmers. It came out of a field, so it has no context, and they'd taken it and put it in the farmyard. But you can see the wonderful design on that there. There's also the Calder stones, which are up in Liverpool. And you've quite a unique design on this. That you've got the foot or like feet design on here, and then you can see the different. There's me. I'm pointing. You can see the different design things down here as well. This is Barclodiad, which is on Anglesey, which is a later Neolithic Bronze Age transition tomb, and you can see the spiral stone outside. Now, this stone was not upright when it was excavated, when this tomb was excavated. This is also a reconstructed tomb. It was laid down flat, and there was a pit underneath, and in the pit there was an ear bone, a human ear bone. Human ear bones are quite hard, so in the cremation process they tend to survive, but somebody had plucked it out and buried it underneath this stone, which was flat down. So it was almost like decommissioned because it was a henge first and then became a tomb. Now this is quite similar to the ones we've got at Barclodiad y Gawres, and this is from Newgrange. So this has come from the wonderful tomb at Newgrange, and as you can see, you've got the spirals, you've got a lozenge shape And then you've got the zigzag shapes there. And then we've got, this is Barclodiad y Gawres again. So we've got that from here in Anglesey, this from Ireland. And then if you compare them together, you've got that central lozenge shape. We've got double lozenge shape there. And then these wonderful zigzags as well here. This is a plan of the tomb, so this is just to generally show you where the decorated stones are. Now, if you look now at number 7 here, which is in pink, that actually has got decoration on it, but it wasn't noticed at the time of the excavation and reconstruction. So it was only noticed a few years ago, actually. I think maybe 2003, 2004. I think this one was discovered. So, or discovered again, should I say? Now, artwork of this particular type, the spirals and the lozenges and the zigzags, seem very, very similar to other things that are seen across this zone here. So it's this island, there's Anglesey somewhere up there, and then down onto Brittany, Spain, and Portugal. So it seems to be this movement of that type of art idea coming down here. So, and there's Barclodiad, I know it says Barclodiad here, I couldn't find the right map. Barclodiad y Gawres is this marking here. So these are passage grave tombs with megalithic art. And then if you look directly across to the west, you've got all the Newgrange ones. And then a bit further up in Ireland, Calder Stones is there. That's just to give you some idea of kind of where the movement was. So sea was very important in that time, and the movement of years. Now, this is some of the prehistoric sites on Anglesey. If you ever go and visit, you can go and see all these wonderful, wonderful tombs. Barclodiad y Gawres is here, and the beaches are there and magnificent as well. And then you've got lots of different tombs. And the other one is Barclodiad, the other one with decoration, is down here. And I thought I'd show you these because I think they're quite brilliant. So this is some laser photography being done at the tomb. There we go. That's it in plan, which is really nice. So there we go. So really, we can think about what this tells us about Neolithic people and their environment. And it kind of shows that as well as moving from hunter-gatherers to a more settled lifestyle, land management began in earnest. Agricultural techniques were learned and skills passed on from the movement of people. There was deforestation to create lands for agriculture. Boundaries were established. Landscapes changed, as well as the new farming techniques. With the movement and travel of people came the travel of art styles and belief systems. How to treat the dead, how to treat the living, how to treat the gods. And tombs were built in often promontory positions in the landscape, and often they had a wonderful view. So there we have it. There's Barclodiad y Gawres, a tomb with a view. Thank you very much.